Welcome to What Your Pastor Really Thinks. Today we're talking about dating. How do you do that as a Christian? How do you do it well as a Christian? What does it even look like? What does it mean? I don't know. I'm married now. I forgot all about it. And it changes with culture too. So it'll be interesting to see what these guys have to say about it. Pastor Ryan McBride, Catalyst Church, Canyon City. How you doing, sir?
Doing great. Good to be back once again, fellas.
Pastor Drew Tarwater, Forefront Church, Denver, Colorado. Thanks for jumping on with us.
Always love to be with you guys.
Pastor Matt Wolf, Arise Church, Denver. When's the last time you've been on a date, Pastor Matt?
It has been a long time, man. I got married when I was 21, so now I just go on dates with the same sexy woman every single week.
Nice.
I was going to say that there's a different answer to that, man. I went on a date yesterday, but
That's right.
Yeah.
My wife. Date your wife, fellas.
It's just a little different than the dating we're probably going to be talking about today, but I don't know. Maybe we're going to be talking about dating our wives.
Absolutely. So what your pastor really thinks about dating. If you have thoughts, questions, leave them in the comments. Let us know what you think. Did we miss something? Do we want to add a thought? Do you want to ask for more clarification on a thought? Put it in the comments. Let us know whether you're watching on YouTube, Spotify, or Apple. Would love to hear from you. So our thoughts about what your pastor really thinks about faith, culture, and theology. But right now we're talking dating. Pastor Ryan McBride, how do you date well as a Christian today?
Yeah, good question. So I will share. Here's what I want to do. I want to share just a setup story that informed, in a sense, my view on dating. But then I'm going to drop a real hot take, and then we'll just see where the conversation goes. So, when I was, I think I was probably a junior in high school. It was the first time that I really like. There was this girl. She was a little bit younger than me. I think she was a freshman, and it's not my wife today. It was a different girl. And man, like I was so like she was godly. She was cute. She went to youth group. Like I knew that she loved the Lord. And that was the first time I'd met a girl like that. And I was like, this is what I'm talking about. This is what all my youth leaders said I should look for. And so like we started dating, right? Like in the traditional sense of the term, like as you date in high school or middle school or whatever. And we dated for 2 weeks. And
is dating in high school like in 2 weeks, like dog years? Like how's that work?
Yeah, it felt like an eternity. We didn't even like brush up against each other. We were so scared, right? Like fear of the Lord. We wanted to keep it pure.
Leaving room for the Holy Spirit.
We were committed to that, and it was great. Yeah, and so we went to a movie 2 weeks later. We went on our first actual date because you say you're dating in high school, and it just means like, yeah, I'm talking to this person at lunchtime, and that's about it, right? Or on the phone at night. So we actually went to a movie, and I remember this just very vivid. We went and saw Geronimo. It was back in like 1999, 2000, something like that. And I don't know, it was a 2.5 hour long movie. It was long and awful. And the whole time I didn't even watch the movie because I was thinking about, okay, how can I strategically place my hand on the armrest? Yep. So that I just want to hold her hand, right? It's been 2 weeks and we've only been talking on the phone. I just want to hold her hand. I don't want to kiss her. I don't want to do anything crazy. I want to hold her hand. And so it took the entire movie, and I didn't realize it was a long movie. And I'll bet there was 2 minutes left in the movie by the time I gained the courage to lean over and ask her if I could hold her. And I asked her, how lame is that? I was like, can I hold your hand? And she's like, okay. And so we held hands for about 2 minutes. That was a Friday night. Weekend goes by. Saturday, Sunday goes by. Monday, she comes up to me in the hallway at school during a break. And she's like, hey, listen, we need to break up because my sister gave me this book and it said that dating is really bad. And I just feel like we're going too fast. And we held hands the other night and I was like, what's the book? And she said, it's called I Kissed Dating Goodbye. And it was the first time I was introduced to this book by Joshua Harris, right? I Kissed Dating Goodbye. And so I have forever and always hated that book. And I don't know what happened in me, but man, I went crazy with girls for a little bit. Not actually like real dating relationships, but other things you can do with girls. And it was all because I was like, I was like rebellious against this stupid book. I Kissed Dating Goodbye. To be fair, I think there are some good principles in that book as I skim through it, but the vast majority I just not a fan of. Anyway, all that to say this. Even so, that being a story from my past, here's my hot take, and I'm just going to drop it. I'm going to say it, and then I'll let one of you other two guys jump in and give your reactions, thoughts. Here's my hot take that particularly so in our modern sense of dating, I would say that dating is nothing more than divorce practice. That's my hot take.
So are you
Drew,
saying we should kiss dating goodbye, Ryan?
I may be. That's my hot take. I'll let you guys talk about it now. I'm done. I'm drinking my coffee.
Is just divorce practice.
He's spicing it up in here for us.
Wow.
Yeah.
You know what though? What's funny is like I coach basketball, and so like you get to know these guys. Like when I coach junior high, like the first week of the season, I tell guys, I go, "Hey, time to get your priorities straight. God, school, family, basketball. If you have a girlfriend, time to break up with her because you won't have time for her." And I get thank you notes from parents about every year I do that. And so
that's funny. Can I just ask a follow-up question before we move on?
Yep.
Ryan, if you're saying, dating is just divorce practice, how the heck do people meet? How do they know if they're going to get married then?
Yeah. Let me say this. I would say in general, the way that people are approaching dating in our modern day and age, the vast majority, I would say, not everyone, because right. And the conversation's got to go there. Okay. What does that look like then? How do you find a godly woman? How do you lock arms with someone to do life with forever? Right. Like, so that's all relevant to the conversation, but just to drop that hot take in general, for the vast majority of people, I would say that modern sense of dating is divorce practice.
Drew, what do you think of that?
Well, I would say that in the world we live in today, especially with, online dating the way it is, stats are interesting. 40% of couples now meet online, and, Tinder swipe culture, Tinder gets 1.6 billion swipes a day. So I do think if we couch this, we're not talking about our kids. We're not talking about dads, how we teach our kids how to date yet. Right. We're talking about just dating, high school, college, adults. We live in a world of hookup culture. Yep. We definitely do. And people, it's almost this idea like, I'm just going to have fun. I'm just going to hook up with people. And then I'm going to find somebody I like. And then, I want to spend my life with someone. And so then along the way, I'm going to find somebody that I end up really connecting with. And I do think it's dangerous. So with what Ryan would say is I've always kind of assigned the fact that you date to find the person you're going to marry. And so you're wasting your time if you're dating someone just for fun, if you don't think that's someone you could actually like spend your life with. Right. And one of the things that I'll have a lot of people kind of wrestle with is this idea like, okay, you're dating somebody, you like them, you're trying to figure out if this is going to work. So what does the world tell you that you should do? Move in together, right? Hey, we're dating. We like each other enough. Living in Denver is crazy expensive. Cost of living's the worst, top 20 in the world, I've heard recently. Interesting. And so let's move in together. The challenge is, stats show that couples who live together before marriage have a 33% higher chance of divorce compared to those who don't. So I think it comes down to the heart attitude of why are you dating? Is it to have a friend? Is it to not be bored? Is it to hook up? Or is it to find your spouse for life and to make a family? That will then drive really how you do it and why you should do it.
Pastor Matt Wolf, did you kiss dating goodbye?
No. But I just wanted to build on something Drew said about living together, like cohabiting. Like the statistics are bleak. Like you're way more likely to be abused, depression, drug use. It's like the worst things that can happen. Melissa was a human development major in college, and she had a professor for an entire lecture go through all the statistics about why cohabitating is bad. And then at the end of it, she said, yeah, but I live with my boyfriend. And that's what everybody's like. People are just foolish with this thing. And so even if you take out the fact that you're probably sinning, it's just stupid. We've talked about that a lot. It's just stupid to do. And what I tell people who are living together, they're like, yeah, but I don't want to get divorced. My parents got divorced, so I want to make sure. I'm like, if you live together and you share stuff together, you're going to like share a dog and a bed and all sorts of furniture. Like you're going to have to go through a divorce whether you're married or not. Like it's still just as nasty. Like who gets whose friends, who gets the dog, who gets the flat screen TV. Like it is a mess, even if you don't have legal papers in there. So let's just put that aside. Now coming back to dating in particular, Ryan, I'm going to push back a little bit. I actually encourage people to date. And but like very specific, what that means, like go on dates, because we actually have this crazy world. And I met Melissa in real life, in real person. It was like right as, in the time when like online dating was kind of still a little weird. People were starting to do it and we're like, that's weird. So that's when we started dating and we got married. So I know dating has drastically changed since then. I've tried to learn, study, talk to people, because I know what people do is dating now is just like sending messages back and forth, like 10,000 messages online and texts and all sorts of stuff and photos and who knows what. Like that's not dating. Dating is actually going somewhere with a person and talking to them. Yeah, you can do some activities, but there like actually has to be looking at the other person, engaging them, talking to them. Like you actually probably should do that with a few people. And sometimes you might have to do it with several people before you find someone who you're truly connecting with. And here's my hot take, Ryan. You ready for this?
Let's hear it.
People like wonder, like, well, Christians, like, how do you know if it's the right person? In 1 Corinthians chapter 7, Paul has this huge thing on singleness and marriage. And he really, if you read it, you're like, man, he's pushing everybody to be single. But he has like an exception. He's like, but if you're burning with passion, then you should get married. That's literally what it says. If you're burning with passion for another person. And I say, if you're dating someone, like you're going on dates with them and you're not burning with passion, just break up with them. Like, don't even go any further. Now you should he's like, get married so that burning doesn't burn you up and destroy you, because it does. Mm-hmm. But like, there should be some sparks. And if there's not any sparks, just move on. Like, that's okay. That's okay.
Yeah. Yep. And Matt, by the way, I totally agree with you. So now we're getting to the point where we're like, okay, let's like defining the terms, right? And context. So my hot take has to do more with, again, contextualization in general, the way that people date today. Now, if we're talking about Christians and what it looks like to go find a good godly person, right. And you're right. You have to get in front of people. You have to go and find out, is this someone I could see myself marrying? Finding those qualities that you're looking for in a spouse. And I would say in general, so if you're a Christian listening to this and you're being very careful not to succumb to that swipe culture, right? Because that's now how we're attributing value to people is, do they look good? No. Don't know nothing about their story. Don't know anything about them. They just don't look good. I'm swiping left, or they're hot. I'm swiping right. And so in general, that's how our world is attributing value and worth to people. So if you're a Christian listening to this and you're going through this and going, okay, I understand that. I'm trying to avoid that. Okay, what do I do then? I don't want to practice for divorce. I would say in general, and we can go more into this, be a burden carrier. Go find another burden carrier, link arms together, seek the Lord, and do life together. And then we can unpack that more. But I think this is the part where you go, okay, so if you're a Christian seeking what the Lord may have for you, what does that look like? So different terms, different sides a little bit, but I agree wholeheartedly with what you're saying.
Pastor Drew, you got younger daughters that are getting near the dating age. What are you going to start telling them besides that you've been practicing your gun range skills as they get older? Like, what are you, how are you going to, father them up going into the dating life?
Yeah, I'm getting pretty good at shooting clay pigeons. And so, watch out, young punks. It really is interesting to think about, how do you instruct your daughters? Because I have 3 daughters. And so I want to teach my girls what to look forward to in a future husband, But I recognize that these girls are teenagers and they just want to go have fun and they want to hang out. And part of dating in high school and in middle school and even college is just kind of just the excitement of being around people and having new experiences, going to a movie for the first time without your parents or with your, that kind of stuff. And so I think for my girls, I want to try to balance this concept of, being a dad who's very watchful and a dad who's taught them how to make good decisions. And so I know that kids need to mess up on their own to experience some pain and circumstances. But we know with dating, especially, you can just change the trajectory of your life, right? Like Matt said before, abuse, trauma that comes from abuse will alter the trajectory of your life. Having a kid and when you're young will alter the trajectory of your life. Yeah. And so I think as a dad, for us as Christian dads, it's really important for our kids to understand that. And one of the things I try to do with my girls is I try to really take the perspective of, I'm not going to hide reality from them. I'm not going to just dump it on them either. I'm going to slowly bring them into reality so they can learn to see the world the way it is. And because I think there's a danger if you say you cannot date till you're 18 or till you're 20. Well, those kids on the side are going to rebel. And if not, when they get 18 or 20, they're going to go crazy. And so I think there is a level of allowing your kids to experience life, to go on, to have some friends that are, as daughters, to have some guy friends, and then to know their dad has high expectations and their dad's going to have a watchful eye, and that Mossberg 12 gauge is not going to be too far away.
Pastor Matt, the Bible was written in a time where it wasn't in our culture and time, but it's still written for us. How do you help bridge that dating gap of what the Bible says into our culture, where it's with the Christian morale going into dating, and there's not like, hey, here's in Corinthians they talk about dating and how a dating life should look like. It doesn't really spell it out specifically, but how do we take those principles into our dating lives?
Yeah, I mean, you're right, Rob, that the dating is completely different because it used to be so much of arranged marriages, and it was such a limited pool of even people that you could look from. Like there's a story in Genesis, like, look for the gal who gives water to your camels. Like, that's the one to marry. It's like, doesn't really apply today, but there are some principles even in that story that you could apply. Yeah. I actually, most of this podcast is stuff that we don't get to talk about on Sundays. I did give a message on dating in late 2023, taking some of these principles, like, hey, what are the principles? Principles like, do not be unequally yoked. Ryan kind of brought that up by like burden carrying. Like, do you have someone who can carry a burden with you? Like, you want two animals carrying an equal yoke, because if you have an ox and then you have a squirrel, like, you ain't pulling a very heavy yoke. And let me tell you, life gets heavy. Kids are heavy. Like, you need someone who's right there with you so that you can pull that yoke together. So that's like a biblical principle, meaning we always say, marry a Christian. And this is something we are ingraining in our kids right now. I got an 8-year-old and 2 5-year-olds, and we're already talking about that. Like, find someone who has that same spiritual trajectory as you, because even if you're like, oh, but they're strong just like me, they're a spiritual person. Yeah, but they're packing a different direction. Like, that ain't going to work. So you do need someone who's moving in the same direction of you. There's other biblical principles, like 1 Timothy 5, which says, treat younger men as brothers and younger women as sisters. I actually think this is one of the most important verses when it comes to dating. Meaning, until you are married, so a pastor or even a court officiant, I don't care, it says you are now husband and wife, then actually you're brother and sister. That should change a little bit how you're necking in the car, right? Okay, your brother and sister, like, are you treating each other with absolute purity, like it says? Which also I would say is like, don't have like a 14-year engagement. Like, come on, people. Like, if you can't wait, like, well, then don't wait, get married. In fact, all 3 of us are pastors. If you need us to officiate your wedding right now, we'll get you set up. I can do it right now. In Colorado, you can do it to yourself, which is the craziest thing. How do you officiate your own wedding? But I'll leave that at the side. It doesn't really make sense to me legally. But I would say there's some clear biblical principles of this that are really important. I'm sure there's some other ones. Maybe you guys could jump in with other biblical principles as well.
Yeah, I'll just stack on what you were talking about with the unequally yoked. But first, I am curious, treating our potential spouse or whatever as a sister or brother. Now, if you're listening to this and you live in Arkansas, right, that might be a different application. I don't know. We won't chase that rabbit hole. But I just thought I would.
We love our friends in Arkansas.
We love you.
We love our
We love
podcast
you.
listeners in Arkansas.
Come on, but you know the jokes.
We love y'all.
I agree with you. So with our kids, and they're all teenagers. I got a son who's closer to 19 now. He's 18 and getting to 19 quick. I got a almost 17-year-old son, and then my daughter is in 8th grade, and she comes home, and I hear all the drama of all the people hooking up and breaking up every week, and it's a different person every week, and it's just drama. The unequally yoked thing is something again we ingrain also into our children, because you're right. If you have two animals and one is carrying a heavier portion of the burden, you're just going to end up going in circles. And in like extreme cases, one of them is going to get their neck broken. And so it's really dangerous as a Christian to be looking to link arms with someone who isn't seeking the Lord, who doesn't value their faith on that level, who doesn't have the Lord as a center and in the top shelf of their life. And so again, if you're a Christian listening to this, make sure that you pay attention to that. And by the way, not just that they go to church, but they are seeking to honor the Lord with their life. Those are the people to be looking for.
So when it comes to finding someone like equally yoked that, follows Christ, claims Christ, and is a Christian, it sounds weird to say, but there's also sometimes different levels of Christian, if you want to call it that. There's someone that maybe wants to go into a full-time ministry. That doesn't make them a better Christian, just different level, different path. But then there's also some people that are a new Christian, and someone that's been a Christian, their whole life and maybe in their family. So they have different perspectives on Christianity. Drew, as you're like raising your daughters and like they're being raised in a Christian household, like how important, like with the equally yoked, but also like someone who's a new Christian, doesn't mean they're not going in the path and, staying, following Jesus, but like how important is that on the being equally yoked, that their faith is, I hate sometimes the word deep maybe is the right word. I don't know, that they're on the same path with their faith with dating.
Yeah, I think it's a really important aspect that people know how to discern. So, here's what I know. When I was dating, man, if a girl said that she went to church, green light, right? Like I just wanted to know that she believed in God because I thought she was cute. That's so hard, right? Because I'm imagining my daughter, she meets a boy she thinks is sweet and cute and all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, but does he love Jesus? That's a hard conversation for a 13-year-old to get into. So that's why I do think there is maturity levels, right? Like when you get older, you can be able to have a conversation. Hey, let's talk about faith.
Yeah.
And I do think that's important for our churches and any pastors who listen to this. I think it's important that we can talk about this with our congregations, because Pew Research did a study. 74% of Christians say that finding someone who shares their faith is very or somewhat important. So I wish they broke that down better, because the reality is, like, I think a lot of people say it's very important, but then you meet somebody you think looks good and has a good job and they're sweet and they're funny. All of a sudden you're willing to overlook things, So I do think it's important to be able to have discernment in these areas. You guys had hot takes earlier, and I want to piggyback on something Matt said. So here's my hot take is that when we find somebody that meets the criteria, right, that especially as a believer who says, hey, I like this person, I can see a future with them, we have chemistry, I'm attracted to them. My hot take is don't wait, go marry them, right? It says the average person dates for 2 to 5 years. Okay. I'm going to tell you a story. Now, this was 1950, right? Let's take it back. But my grandma and grandpa, they met. They got engaged in 2 weeks, got married 2 months later, and were married 71 years. So marriage comes down to commitment, right? Yeah, isn't that beautiful? And so I'm like, man, you don't need to date for 5 years and live together to figure out if you guys can coexist. Is she a Christian? Does he believe in Jesus? Do they love you? Do they love the Lord? Are they going to serve the church with you? Great. Are you attracted to them? Great. Are they going to be a good mom and dad someday? Great. Marry them. And as Matt said earlier, we got 3 people right here you can call. We can make it happen.
Drew, I got my hot take for you with when your daughters in a few years goes, hey, I'm bringing this boy home for dinner. He loves God. He's got a great career path. He's funny. He works out. He's good looking. He's got a great family. And you're like, good, good, good. Then she goes, but he's a Raiders fan.
Hey, discernment. You got to have criteria. And I hate to say it, but that's one that knocks you out. I just hate to say it.
So as we wrap this up, Pastor Matt Wolf, parting thoughts here on dating as a Christian and what the Bible says about it.
Yeah, I have one word, but I do want to say something about what your question to Drew about. And I tell people this regularly in my church. I'm like, if you're dating someone, invite them to church. And if they don't come within the first 5 dates, dump them. Like, that's simple. And people are like, that's crazy. And you know, what if they don't like this church? Well, then go to a different church that you both want to go to together. But like, if they're not worshiping together, who cares if they say they're a Christian? There's almost 70% of our country say they're Christians. Like that doesn't mean they're actually a follower of Jesus. So that's my one plug. And then the word I want to give people with dating is just clarity. And communication is key for any relationship, but in this crazy dating world with online, like, clarity has to be the key. And it's clarity in your communication with each other, because you need to be honest. And Melissa still makes fun of me to this day, because on our first date, I told her, I said, hey, we're not exclusive. We're just hanging out right now. And it's amazing probably that I got a second date. It really is, because it was a terrible first date. But you know, at 3, 4, 5 dates in, it was like in a month, I said, hey, we're girlfriend, boyfriend, we're exclusive now. And neither of us dated in that month period, but I just wanted to be clear, like, where we were at in the relationship, because now with online dating, people are getting texts, messages from dozens of people. They're stringing multiple people along. Well, if it doesn't work with this person, I'll do this. Like, they're bachelorizing and bacheloretteizing, dating. And it actually is failure. There's a reason why bachelor and bachelorette is like a 2% success rate for their marriages, because they're trying to date multiple people at the same time. No. There has to be a point where you're exclusive. You cut off flirting with everybody else, or else it is, like Ryan said, just practice for divorce. So be very clear what your intentions are. And hey, we're exclusive now. There's only the two of us. There's no texting, messaging anybody else. Be clear.
Pastor Ryan McBride, parting thoughts on dating.
Yep. I will leave it with this. Wise words from DC Talk. The kind of girl you meet behind the doors of a church, God will bring her to you so you don't have to search.
That's
Pastor
good.
Drew Tarwater, can you top that?
No, I can't, but I can go along with it. Hey, 50% of people on dating apps say they're just looking for something casual. So if you're a believer and you're looking for somebody, get off those dating apps, get on a Christian app. You check out churches, right? Like Ryan said, hey, we get it. Online dating is a huge thing. And man, most of the weddings I do, people met online, and I love it. But if you're playing around on Tinder and all these other sites, people you're talking to, they're not looking for what you're looking for. No. So make a good decision and pursue the right person at the right place.
This is what your pastor really thinks about faith, culture, theology, and today dating. If it's something you want to leave a comment, put it in the comment box. We'd love to hear from you, hear your thoughts. Did we miss something? Did you want to hear us talk more about something more specifically that we talked about? Or if you just want to say how Drew's wrong and Raider fans are just fine, you can be wrong too. So we'd love to hear from you. If you need to send something more direct where you don't want it to be a public comment, feel free to email me, rob@simpler.com. That's rob@sympler.com. That'll be in the description as well, so you can find it there as well. Thanks for listening. Very much appreciate it. We'll see you guys here next time.